February 23rd, 1935, 10:17 p.m. Raymond Big Ray Foster stood 6 feet behind Bumpy Johnson at the Red Rooster with a loaded .38 revolver in his coat pocket and $50,000 in cash waiting in a locker at Grand Central Station. His palms were sweating so badly he'd wiped them on his pants 4 times in the last 10 minutes. The music was loud, Cab Calloway's band playing Minnie the Moocher, but Ray could hear his own heartbeat over the drums. Bumpy was laughing at something Illinois Gordon said, completely relaxed, his back turned to Ray, vulnerable. The plan was simple. Wait for Bumpy to stand, follow him toward the bathroom, 2 shots in the hallway, walk out the kitchen exit. By midnight, Ray would be in Philadelphia with enough money to save his dying brother and disappear forever. He reached into his pocket, fingers wrapping around the gun's grip. Then Bumpy turned around, looked Ray straight in the eyes and said 7 words that made Ray's blood freeze. "That gun doesn't work anymore, does it?" The question wasn't a guess, and suddenly Ray realized he'd been playing a game where someone else had already written the ending. Dutch Schultz made his biggest mistake in January 1935 when he convinced himself that loyalty could be purchased like any other commodity. Dutch was trying to take Harlem's numbers racket, worth millions annually, but Bumpy Johnson kept blocking him. Every approach failed, so Dutch decided to buy someone inside Bumpy's circle. His researchers found Raymond Foster, Bumpy's bodyguard, for 3 years. Big Ray was loyal, dependable, had taken bullets for Bumpy twice, but Ray's younger brother Marcus was dying of tuberculosis in an upstate sanatorium. The medical bills were crushing Ray, drowning him in debt he couldn't escape. On January 18th, Dutch's Lieutenant Lulu Rosenkrantz met Ray at a Bronx diner. Lulu opened a briefcase, showed him $50,000 and made the offer. "Kill Bumpy Johnson, take the money, save your brother." Marcus needed an expensive treatment in Switzerland. $8,000 for the procedure. $50,000 would cover everything with money left over. Some historians argue Ray agreed immediately out of desperation. Others claim he resisted for weeks before breaking. Either way, by February 15th, Ray had taken the job. Dutch's people gave him a .38 revolver, details about the locker at Grand Central, and told him to strike at the Red Rooster on February 23rd. What Dutch didn't know was that a waitress at that Bronx diner had recognized Ray, thought it was strange he was meeting with Dutch's people, and mentioned it to her cousin who ran numbers for Bumpy. The cousin told Mouse Williams. Mouse told Bumpy, and Bumpy started planning something that would change how everyone in Harlem understood power. Bumpy Johnson didn't confront Raymond Foster immediately, and that decision made everything that followed possible. When Mouse told Bumpy about Ray's meeting with Dutch's lieutenant, Bumpy could have grabbed Ray and demanded answers. Instead, he told Mouse to watch Ray carefully and report suspicious behavior. For 3 weeks, Bumpy observed his own bodyguard falling apart. Ray's hands shaking, checking his watch constantly. Sweating on cool February evenings. Some claim Bumpy was being cruel, enjoying Ray's suffering. Others argue he was gathering intelligence, confirming Ray had actually taken the job. The truth is probably both. Bumpy needed to know when and where Ray would strike, and he needed time to arrange his response. On February 18th, Bumpy called a Brooklyn gunsmith named Victor Chen. Victor was a specialist in weapon modifications. Bumpy explained what he needed: Ray's .38 to fail at the critical moment. Not jam or misfire, just click harmlessly when the trigger was pulled. Victor said he could do it, but needed access to the gun. On February 20th, while Ray was out collecting payments, Illinois Gordon broke into Ray's apartment, took the .38 to Victor, who worked on it for 90 minutes, then returned it. The modification was invisible, same weight, same feel. But the firing pin wouldn't strike. Some historians question whether this story is true, whether the gun modification was actually possible, whether Bumpy had time to arrange it. Most details come from Illinois Gordon's accounts told years later, and Illinois had reasons to exaggerate. But something happened with that gun on February 23rd, something Dutch hadn't planned for. And the most consistent explanation is that Bumpy sabotaged Ray's weapon before Ray ever entered the Red Rooster. February 23rd, Raymond Foster woke up knowing he was going to kill a man before midnight. What Ray didn't know was that Bumpy had filled the Red Rooster with people prepared for what was coming. The bartender knew. The waiters knew. Illinois and Mouse knew. They weren't there to discuss housing issues. They were there to witness what happened when someone betrayed Bumpy Johnson. At 9:15 p.m., Bumpy and Ray arrived. The club was packed. 200 people, Cab Calloway in full swing. Bumpy took his usual corner table. Ray stood behind him, hand in his coat pocket, touching the gun. He'd rehearsed this moment 100 times, wait for Bumpy to stand, follow him to the bathroom, take the shot in the darker hallway. But Bumpy didn't stand. He sat there for an hour, talking, laughing, completely relaxed. Ray's anxiety built with each minute. The plan was to strike before 11 p.m. to reach Grand Central before the locker closed, but Bumpy just kept sitting. At 10:15, Bumpy finally stood and walked toward the bathroom. Ray followed, hand gripping the gun. They were moving through the crowd. The hallway was just ahead. Then Bumpy stopped, turned around, looked at Ray with eyes that saw everything. "That gun doesn't work anymore, does it?" Raymond Foster pulled the gun out because he had to know if what Bumpy said was true. His hand shaking, he raised the .38 and aimed at Bumpy's chest from 6 feet away. People were starting to notice. Conversations stopping. Ray pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. He could see the bullets in the chamber. He pulled again. Click. Again. Click. Bumpy hadn't moved, hadn't flinched. Then he spoke loud enough for the suddenly silent club to hear. "Dutch Schultz gave you $50,000 to kill me, gave you a gun. Told you when to strike. But he didn't know I've had people watching you for 3 weeks. Didn't know we modified your weapon. Didn't know that every person in this room is here to see what happens when someone betrays family." Ray's legs gave out. He sank to his knees, the useless gun clattering to the floor. Everyone was watching. Some accounts claim Bumpy had Ray executed that night. Others say he was beaten but lived. What's documented by multiple sources is that Bumpy picked up the .38, examined it, then looked at Ray with an expression that wasn't angry. It was disappointed. "Your brother Marcus," Bumpy said quietly. "He needs treatment. Swiss sanatorium, $8,000. Ray looked up, tears streaming. "How did you—" "I know everything that happens in my house," Bumpy interrupted. "I knew about Marcus 6 months ago. I knew about the debt. I knew about Dutch's offer." He paused. "You could have come to me." What Bumpy Johnson did next became the story Harlem told for decades. Bumpy reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He dropped it in Ray's lap. $10,000. Enough for Marcus's treatment and 2 years of recovery care. Take it. Go to Switzerland. Save your brother. The Red Rooster was silent except for the band still playing. Ray stared at the envelope. "Why?" "Because Dutch Schultz thinks loyalty can be bought," Bumpy said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He thinks people only stay loyal when they're scared or paid. But loyalty isn't a transaction, it's a relationship. You don't buy it. You earn it by being there when people need you." Some historians argue this was manipulation, Bumpy turning betrayal into public demonstration of generosity, knowing the story would spread and undermine Dutch's future recruitment. Others claim Bumpy was genuine, understanding Ray's desperation. The evidence supports both interpretations. You betrayed me because you didn't think I'd help. That's my failure, not just yours. Bumpy looked at Ray. Take that money. Save your brother. Leave New York. Dutch's people will come after you when they realize you failed. Philadelphia? Baltimore, somewhere far. Ray picked up the envelope with shaking hands. "And if I stay? Then we have a different conversation," Illinois said from the crowd. Some claim Ray left that night, others say he stayed another week. But by early March, Ray was gone. Multiple sources confirm he went to Switzerland with Marcus, got the treatment, eventually settled in California. Ray lived until 1967, 32 years after trying to kill Bumpy Johnson. Dutch Schultz learned about the Red Rooster incident on February 24th, and his response revealed why he could never beat Bumpy. Lulu brought the news. Ray pulled the gun, it didn't fire, Bumpy knew everything. Dutch's first question: "Is Ray alive?" "Yeah. Bumpy let him walk, gave him money." Dutch couldn't process this. "You don't let traitors live. You kill them as examples." "Maybe that's why Bumpy controls Harlem and we don't," Lulu replied. Dutch tried framing it as weakness. Bumpy was too soft. But his crew understood what actually happened. Bumpy had turned Dutch's attack into a demonstration of superior intelligence and values. Dutch tried to buy loyalty. Bumpy earned it. The story spread through New York within days. Every version emphasized the same points. Bumpy knew for weeks, sabotaged the weapon, staged the confrontation publicly, then paid for the treatment Ray was willing to kill for. The message: working for Bumpy meant he'd take care of you even after betrayal. Working for Dutch meant being used and discarded. Some historians argue the story is mythologized, details exaggerated over time. They point out Bumpy's intelligence network, while good, probably wasn't as comprehensive as legend suggests. Others counter that core facts are documented. Ray met Dutch's people, tried to shoot Bumpy, the gun failed. Ray left with money for his brother. Whether Bumpy planned every detail or improvised brilliantly, the result was the same. Dutch never successfully turned anyone in Bumpy's organization again. He tried at least 3 more times between March and July 1935, but every time the person came to Bumpy first. The Red Rooster taught Harlem betraying Bumpy wasn't just dangerous, it was stupid, because Bumpy would help if you asked but destroy you if you didn't. Here's what keeps me thinking about this story. What if the gun had fired? What if Victor Chen's modification failed? What if Ray pulled the trigger and it worked? Bumpy might have survived chest shots, but he might not have. And if Bumpy died that night, everything would be different. Dutch would have taken Harlem. The community protection model would have collapsed. The power structure would have shifted. But that's not what happened. And here's the thing. The reason wasn't just luck. Bumpy created conditions where Ray's betrayal became predictable and preventable. He'd built an intelligence network that warned him. He'd cultivated relationships with people like Victor who could help him respond. He'd maintained enough control that staging a public confrontation was possible. Was Bumpy lucky someone told him about Ray's meeting? Yes, but luck favors people who've positioned themselves to receive information. Was Bumpy clever for sabotaging the gun instead of killing Ray? Absolutely, but that cleverness came from understanding that public mercy built loyalty more effectively than private violence. The gun clicked because Bumpy made it impossible to fire. And he made that possible because he'd spent years building the network and relationships that warned him, helped him, protected him. That's not luck. That's strategy executed until it looks like magic. The story of the gun that clicked at the Red Rooster is about betrayal and forgiveness, about different approaches to power, about why Dutch Schultz couldn't beat Bumpy Johnson even with more money and more men. But mostly it's about what Harlem learned that night. Loyalty can't be bought. It has to be earned. And Bumpy Johnson had spent years earning it in ways $50,000 could never match. Next week, we're covering the time Bumpy negotiated with Lucky Luciano over territories in 1936. and how a handshake between two criminals created peace that lasted longer than most government treaties. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment. Do you think Bumpy was genuine giving Ray money, or was it manipulation? Let me know. And remember, the most dangerous weapon isn't always the one that fires. Sometimes it's the one that clicks, because that click teaches everyone watching something they'll never forget.